So, Mr. Z, why is the boy sad?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with Antoine right before this, and the boy is sad because he's trying to figure out his own path to happiness, and that path does come across this idea of what we're confronting with this book is this ideology of transgenderism, but it's because he's trying to make his own path towards happiness instead of trusting in God's laid out path for happiness. And so whatever the boy tries to do to fix that God-shaped void in his life, he just consistently fails at. And so that's why the boy is sad. Yeah.
So this book is applicable to the lane of transgenderism, but not just the lane of transgenderism.
Right.
It's a much broader than that. But why specifically this problem?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been years in the making. It's how just God has led providentially over the last 2 decades of my life that one of these issues started back when I was still teaching in a public school setting, interacting with a lot of children that identify themselves as transgender, pushing back on that ideology, being educated by the Cleveland Metropolitan School District and the Cleveland Clinic in gender ideology, and just seeing how dangerous and how manipulative an ideology it was, and how it's, on the face of it, it sought to help these children, but what it was doing was ultimately hurting them. And it came out of this idea that when we as Christians think about transgenderism, we just think about it's gross, it's something so kind of out of this realm, it's something that's disgusting, and all those things are true. But unfortunately, a lot of times we don't have the grounds for, well, why is it out of bounds? Well, why is this not going to bring happiness? And this book was an attempt. It was actually Brother Samuel, if you remember him, he was a big catalyst behind this because he kept pushing that, you have secular writers writing children's books about this, explaining this. Why don't we have Christian authors writing a book explaining from a Christian perspective of why this isn't going to be helpful, why this shouldn't be your pursuit? And so it was years ago, probably 2.5 years ago, I was sitting down to write a sermon, and I was, typing and writing away, and just this thought kind of crept into my mind. I'm like, I think this could be it. I think this could be a storyline. And so honestly, I wrote it. It was like 20 minutes between sermon prep that I wrote the story down and just started sending it to other people to read and saying, is this as engaging as I think it is, or is it just, that? And then so it took life of its own. And then honestly, the majority of the work was Julia putting into these amazing illustrations and making it come alive.
So for you guys who have heard New Sort of Press, you don't know too much about what we do. So a few of us got together and we started this nonprofit ministry. The goal is get resources into the hands of church members to do ministry, to disciple. And so one of the big ways we've been doing that is through translation, just translating great stuff already that's in English into other languages to get it to people who don't necessarily have those resources. And so this book is no different. This is our first kind of entryway into publishing our own book, but the goal is still the same. The goal is get a resource into your hands so that you can do discipleship and do ministry. So the last question is, how would parents use this book to share the gospel with their kids?
Yeah, absolutely. This book is primarily about, that's what the book is marketed as, and that's where it came out of, to deal with the issue of gender identity, to deal with the issues of sexuality. But it's not just that. Like Chuck said earlier, it's much broader than that. And I would not, as a parent, I hope that this book is useful in general discipleship. And as we'll read it, I hope you'll see that it's not just about that particular issue. But even with that, our children are going to be wrestling with that issue. They're going to meet someone. It's a prevalent issue in today's society. And instead of being reactive to these issues of, we don't know what to do. No, let's be proactive as believers. We could introduce these kind of themes, and it's at a level where the hope is, and again, I hope you'll see this through the reading today, but it's not confusing to children, but instead it's bolstering a Christian worldview of where joy is to be found. And it's not, I'm going to pursue, my inner kind of satisfaction. I'm going to pursue what my feelings want ultimately, because it doesn't matter if that ends up in transgenderism or any other kind of ism. Ultimately, it's going to leave the child unsatisfied. And so this is a book that it's pursuing Christ on his terms and pursuing God through the gospel. And that's what the book's about, ultimately. The boy on the cover is just sad. He's sad. He's trying to figure out what is making him sad and how to be happy. Ever since he could remember, James had always been sad. For James, this seemed odd, since his mom and dad always told him that he was the center of the universe. And the mom saying, you are all that matters. And dad saying, as long as you're happy. No one as important as he should be sad. And he believed he was very important. Right? So he's confused. Mom and dad keep telling him he's the greatest thing ever. He's the center of the universe. He's like, well, why am I sad? If James wanted a bike, his parents bought him a bike. And then here's his dad yelling, no one has a bike like yours. But this did not make James happy. If James wanted 5 bikes, his parents bought him 5 bikes. But this also did not make James happy. The dad is saying, I knew, or is it mom? I knew we should have gotten the Rocket 500. Right? Whatever James wanted, his parents bought. But even this did not make James happy. And there's all kinds of things that they bought him, all kinds of gifts that they bought him, but the boy is still sad, right? And his mom is saying, should we try something different? Maybe, to be happy, James would need to prove that he was the center of the universe. He wanted to stand out from everybody else. Just thinking, how am I going to do this? James made his parents color his hair purple, right? But this also did not make James happy. It just wasn't enough. James would have to shock the entire world. And his mom is saying, we have to get drastic. And his dad saying, it didn't work. Andre made a good observation saying, probably the reason this isn't working is because dad has no belt and not utilizing the belt. After watching a show on his favorite channel, an exciting thought came to him. We didn't list the channel, but as you could tell, the channel is a reference to Disney. James would defy nature itself. He would become a girl. Please call me Janet. And his mom's saying, this will definitely the trick. And the dad's saying, are we sure about this? Kind of passive. But Janet or James still wasn't happy. Right? And that's the goal of it, right? Antoine and I were talking about this a little bit ago, like everyone's affirming of transgender care, right? Every hospital, every TV show, everybody, but it's still not happy. It's crazy that the uptick in school shootings by people with transgender ideology, it's not making them happy. That's the whole thing of it. Sulking in his room, he would often watch his neighbor, Robert, playing outside. Robert seemed happy. Maybe Robert knew something James did not. James went over to Robert's house to find out. So maybe Robert has the secret to happiness. At Robert's house, things were different. Not everything revolved around James. James, hold the dog. I'll be right back. As a matter of fact, not everything revolved around Robert either. So something different. He's not the center of the universe in this family. Robert asked his parents if he could have a bike. His parents said, no. Are parents allowed to say no to their kids? He's asking. Robert asked his parents for 5 new bikes. His parents sent him to his room, right? This is cruel and unusual punishment, the little boy is thinking. Robert asked his parents if he could look different than everybody else and color his hair purple. His parents said, stop it, right? What is happening in this family, the sad boy is thinking. Robert asked his parents if he could become a girl like James did. His parents simply told him, that's impossible. I better not ask these people to call me by my preferred pronouns, the little boy's thinking. It's not going to work here. Robert did not get everything he wanted, but Robert was happy. Excuse me? This is the little boy asking the parents of Robert why he's happy. James could not understand why. He had to know the reason, so he politely asked the family, "You didn't give Robert the bike he wanted. You didn't give Robert the bikes he wanted. You didn't let Robert have the purple hair he wanted. You didn't allow Robert to become a girl." "That's right," said Robert's parents. "Then why is he still so happy?" asked James. And here's the linchpin of the book. Here's the answer to this problem. And they say, the same reason you are not, young man. You see, we were not created to be the center of the universe. That's why you're not happy. If you weren't created to be the center of the universe and you try to be the center of the universe, are you going to be happy? No, because who is ultimately the center of the universe? Absolutely, God himself. And so in the epilogue, it says, a man named Augustine once said, "You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you." This is the reason the boy in the story had a hard time finding joy. He was looking for it in the wrong place. We were made for God. He is the center of everything. Not understanding this, or worse, fighting against it, will always result in misery, not joy. The good news of the gospel is that through Jesus, we can be forgiven of trying to take God's place at the center. Jesus Christ died to pay the debt of every sin for everyone who would trust in him for salvation. In Jesus, we can have ultimate and eternal joy. And so that's the book, The Sad Boy. And the idea is that where happiness is found, right? The idea is that the boy keeps looking for happiness. And that's where transgender ideology ultimately is at its core. It's an idolatry of self. It's something that is idolatrous. And the only way you're going to get around it isn't by pursuing those idols. It's by putting God in that place. And so it's the simple way of explaining a rather profound reality, hopefully to children and to parents alike. So The Sad Boy.